This video comes with a free schematic. Stick to the end to figure out what it is and how to download it. Hey there, hey, hi, why don't you come have a cozy seat? Listen, I've been meaning to tell you, we won't be making the Iron Farm deco today. No, I know, I promised we'd be making the deco this week, and we were all looking forward to seeing it on the SMP, but the issue was, here, let me show you. This is where we were going to build the Iron Farm. And this is how big the schematic is. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not dig it out, or make a perimeter? And the answer is the server is still in 1.17, and with the increased depth in 1.18, making a perimeter right now is practically useless. So until we update to 1.18, there won't be a perimeter. No perimeter, no farm. No farm, no deco. But, no fear, I do have a swell build planned for today. This is our spawn-based bone meal farm. It spawns fish by the millions and makes a very satisfying sound. But the issue is, and this is coming from a place of love of the redstone aesthetic, is that the storage area is very barren and dull, and I think it's time to change that. But before we jump into time-lapse, this sound gives me a terrible idea. This build was loosely inspired by Studio Ghibli. More of a weird combination of Studio Ghibli and my own fantasy style designs. The base is composed of my favorite combination of stone, light gray wool, and andesite, while the foundation is a cracked stone brick, and polished andesite. And if you caught that little jump in the footage right there, I may or may not have forgotten to unpause my time lapse when I got back from the main storage. But let's pretend that didn't happen, shall we? After creating the arches and smoothing out the stone on the rest of the build, thank you again Kiku on the left there, I decided to move on to the actual walls of the building. So you can see here I created the bases of the pillars that will hold up the rest of the build, and the white walls, as you can see being generated here, is the actual structure of the house. I created each wall individually, one at a time, instead of trying to do every single wall layer by layer. I figured this would save time. In the long run, I actually don't know if this saved me a ton of time. But eventually, after 1 or 2 or 3 hours of work, I created all the walls to all the various parts of this build. It's a little bit in a T shape, and I created all the walls for that. Eventually, you'll see a tower generate in the center, and it doesn't look too impressive from such a far away view, but this tower takes 2 flight duration 1 rockets to get to the top of. It is so exceptionally tall. It's so tall, in fact, that I didn't realize how tall it was when I was designing it in single player, and it actually reaches just 2 blocks below world height. I cannot believe how lucky I was when I designed that. I believe it was Kiku actually pointed it out, saying, I think this will clip the world height. And I started just sweating. It was such a beautiful build. I couldn't believe that I had made such a huge mistake. But in the end, it all turned out well, and I'm very glad that it did so. Here you can see me creating that tower that I was mentioning. I built the wood pillars on the side first because I figured that would help structure the build and make it so, again, my inventory wasn't too cluttered and I could just have white blocks. Another little jump in the footage, I kept going back to main storage to get resources and forgetting to unpause the footage. I can't believe how many times I made that rookie mistake. However, now you can see that almost the entire build is complete except for the roofs. For the roofs, I had to go back to what the main inspiration for this build was. It is for a fish farm. So, after designing the roof almost completely in oxidized copper, I thought one way to save on copper, which can be a fairly expensive resource in bulk, would be to incorporate different forms of prismarine. So now we have normal prismarine and prismarine bricks, as well as the oxidized copper, and the thought process behind that was prismarine. It's from Guardian Farms, Guardians, Oceans, water, fish. It worked inside my little monkey brain. And I did experiment with different blocks, but I figured that even though the nether is very dark and crimson, the biome is crimson at least, I thought that prismarine did add a nice splash of color to the build, and really did suit the overall aesthetic. I also used warped wood buttons to spawn proof any flat surfaces where mobs could potentially spawn. And you can see these dips in the roofs where I tried to add a little bit of movement, kind of make it seem like the roof is very heavy, and kind of add a little more motion to what would normally be, in my general style, a very flat and boring view. Lastly, here is that roof that I mentioned that almost clips world height. I started this one just like every other one and printed it out, and unlike the other ones, this one is flat. And I don't really have a stylistic choice behind that. I just kind of liked how it looked. The very last thing I did for this build was my take on a Japanese lantern. There's not a lot you can do to try to generate that sort of aesthetic in Minecraft, but I thought I did my best. My idea was to create a cloud or a swarm of these lanterns spinning up and around the building, creating a nice sort of aesthetic, a nice atmosphere, and add what I like to consider some motion and some more color to a otherwise fairly static and arguably plain build. I used dirt and snow as scaffolding blocks in this build, and for a few of the further out lanterns, I did utilize easy place. I am a full-time college student, and any way that I could shave off just a few minutes of extra work to get this build finished, I thought it would probably be worthwhile. I have been kind of conflicted about the use of easy place, but I think for this part of this project, I think it was completely justified. I've actually thought about making a video on the pros and cons of easy place, and I'm still not settled on whether I like it or not, and you can let me know down in the comments whether or not you would like to see a video like that. But now that this build is done, let's go take a peek at it in survival. Alright, let's go check it out. And over here, as it's loading in, is the final build. Well, I say final build. It's actually not. I ran out of time and we didn't have the resources, and there's a little bit that's supposed to go around the base here. You can see where I kind of marked out where certain elements are going to be added. And you know what? I would love to show you this build here because it's fairly impressive. But in order to show you the true majesty and the end product, let's go check it out in my single player world. And here is what the final build on my single player world looks like. As you can see here, what we don't have on the SMP yet are these lovely trees. I used azalea leaves because they are the only leaf block that will stay green in the nether. The only issue is we didn't have a farm for azalea leaves. We just completed one thanks to Zoid, one of our other new provisional members, and hopefully by the next episode, though I probably shouldn't promise that anymore, hopefully by some point we'll have created these trees around the base of the build. But I think that this build is truly one of my favorites that I've made. It's so quaint, for lack of a better word. I think that the blue complements the white, that complements the gray, that complements the green. And I know I use blue and white a lot, but I think that this lighter kind of style of the blue with the mix of prismarine and oxidized copper, I think it turned out really well. I love these water features. Since we're in the nether, we can't use actual water, using glass as water, dripping down and in these canals and eventually pouring off this side. And this area right here originally had some redstone machinery from the farm in it, and kind of using that redstone machinery as a canal, I thought that that was a pretty cool touch. I also really love these lanterns. Holy smokes. They're probably one of my most favorite aesthetical touches that I've ever added to one of my builds. And this lantern right here, this one right here, reaches the world height in the nether. You can't build any higher than that slab, and I think that's amazing. And of course, we have to see what it looks like with shaders. And here is what this bad boy looks like with BSL. I'm sorry, I really cannot get enough of this build, and once again, those lanterns just add such a fun and playful touch. I really enjoy how this build looks, and with shaders, those trees, how they ripple in the wind, and how this build looks with the lanterns and the soul lanterns dotted around, causing little bright lights. If I set the time to midnight, those lanterns add such a cool aesthetic wrapping around the building in the breeze. I really love how this build turned out. I would love to hear your thoughts as well. As I'm editing this, I kind of realized that the whole nighttime view of this building means almost nothing. Shaders means almost nothing, since the final build is actually in the nether, and shaders in the nether look horrible, and nighttime in the nether never happens. But regardless, I would love to hear what you guys think down below in the comments. Today's first question is from Benjamin, asking what my favorite building style is, and oh boy, this took some soul searching. I thought about it for a while, and I think that the style I'm best at is this semi-chromatic pseudo-medieval fantasy that you saw in this video, and in my many other builds. I love the aesthetic, and I have a lot of experience in it, which is why lately I've been trying to branch out and garner a little more variety in my style on Wavetech. The next question is from Arich, good to see you sticking around, asking who came up with with Harold. Oh, we don't talk about him. We don't think about him. The next question is from Fish, from a few videos ago, asking when building in survival do I use schematics? Short answer is yes, thanks Ruthro, but not strictly to the letter. I use them for basic structure as well as the occasional details, but sometimes I freestyle on top of the builds and the schematics, which can cause various amounts of confusion when looking at the final product. Now, if you read the description of my last video, you know that I hit a pretty big personal milestone, a grand total of 250 subscribers. I seriously never thought my channel would be that big, and the fact that I'm now sitting on 350-ish is just baffling to me, and thank you all so much for the wonderful support. But that means, following my promise in the sheep farm video, that I am releasing a random schematic from my personal collection. So behold! This is a big old wheel, full of various schems. There are some duplicates, but if you look closely, there is a small chance that a large build, including the museum, sheep farm, iron farm, even today's build, could be picked. So, alrighty, here goes. The build has been picked, and I don't know which one that is. 1 second. Oh, cool, it's this one. Okay, sweet, I found it. So, for now, if you would like to download this bad boy, the process is fairly simple. All you need to do is join the Wavetech Discord, the link will be down in the description, and there is a channel called Public Archive. If you look in there, you will find a file posted by me, that's Mr. MR on Discord, and it'll be named Mr. Max Mondays _ YouTube schematic _1. If you download it, I'd love to see what you do with it. Feel free to message me screenshots on Discord. Maybe I'll even show them off in the next videos. Who knows? And don't worry, if you don't like this scam, I'll be doing this for every 250 subscribers. And as of right now, we're just like 140 away, so feel free to stick around for more. Sadly, it is that time once again. See you later, guys.